Hey, welcome in. Had a really boring position in a recent endgame, but boring can become losing very fast if you're not careful. So I was playing here with the white pieces. I just played rook to b7, which checks the black king. Black king retreats to e8. And now I played rook to c7. This would have been equivalent to playing rook to a7 or h7. The idea here is I'm, preparing to get my rook down to the first rank, because black has this passed pawn that's sort of marching down the d file. And this is a position where both sides have three pawns and a rook. Black has the advantage of a more advanced passed pawn that's protected by his rook, but white has the advantage of a king that's more advanced up the board, ready to do some damage if kind of the rook leaves the sixth rank, and black's king is sort of trapped here on the back rank. So this is an equal position. So black here played the natural move, advancing the passed pawn, and here I played rook to c1, preparing to get the rook into the path of the pawn. And this is kind of a situation where you sort of think you see, where the game is going. So you are just kind of maybe playing on autopilot at this point. I eventually envisioned this position where black pushed d2, and then I just moved my rook in front of the pawn. At this point, the pawn becomes very hard to promote. If you want to promote this pawn, you're going to have to get the black king, all the way down to one of these squares to sort of disrupt the white rook from the d1 square. But if we start to bring the king out, white can start to push his own passed pawn, or even, the white king can clearly beat the black king to this d2 square. So, this is a completely drawn position once the white rook moves in front. It was a drawn position before. It's a drawn position when the rook is in front of the pawn. You're just not going to be able to promote this pawn, and black will be able to take this pawn, but white will take this pawn, and then it will be two pawns and a rook versus two pawns and a rook. So totally drawn position. So that's sort of what I saw there. And that's what I was anticipating. Before white actually pushed d2, though, white made a sneaky move, and white played king to f7. It's not really sneaky. If I had realized what was happening, this is still completely drawn. You can beat the king back to the eighth rank by just playing rook to c7, and maybe you go for some sort of perpetual here. But I actually missed that, and I was thinking so much about getting my rook in front of the pawn that I played rook to d1 instead. And here I am thinking, okay, this is a drawn position. The rook is blocking the pawn. It's the pawn's not quite on d2, but it's blocking, so we're all good. This was in fact a terrible blunder. The game is now completely over. So see if you can pause for a second and find the way to move the way to win the game for black. Awesome. So hopefully you found it. It is rook to d4. This is a really cool winning move because it's not a check. It's just preparing checkmate. Here I played rook takes on d3, hoping that, black would just take on the rook and then I'd be down material, but black didn't fall for that, and black played rook to f4 with checkmate. All of these squares are protected. The king is protecting these escape squares for the white king, and that's why this king move was so sneaky, quote unquote sneaky, because when the king kind of moves to f7, it's taking away the escape squares for the white king. And what's really cool is that as soon as black plays this d4 move, white is nothing white can do. Like I said, I took the pawn here, but the king cannot escape. All of these squares are not available for the king to move, so the king just has to stay there and wait for checkmate to be delivered with rook to f4. So really unfortunate loss. Again, I was just a little bit too impatient about kind of taking my rook out of the game and letting his king take away these escape squares. A little bit too impatient, and allowed this really slow, silent, deadly checkmate in two moves to occur. So always be careful in your endgames. You don't want to end up like me, and we'll see you next time.